Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, right here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. I'm your host, Philip Catafamo. We've got a great show in store for you this week. Later in the program, we'll be joined by Flagstaff High School baseball coach Michael Dubosh. He'll talk about the program's production of MLB-level talent. We'll then be joined by John Brown of Mingus Union Softball. He'll talk about the role that club ball plays in high school softball. But on the other side of this break, we'll be joined by Mingus Union girls tennis coach Andrea Meyer, who will talk about the senior leadership within her program this season. All of that and a whole lot more on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Off the Bench. We'll be right back.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation. I am joined by Mingus Union High School girls tennis coach Andrea Meyer. Coach Meyer, welcome on to the program.
Thank you.
Well, we are happy to have you. Obviously, coming into the 2020 season, the Marauders were looking to bounce back after a tough 2019 season. Of course, the pandemic cut that year short. So, Coach, here in 2021, assuming that the year goes the way it's supposed to go, how are you feeling about this new season here?
Well, I am by nature an optimist, and I think that last year what was different was that I had this tremendous crop of new girls, maybe 8 or 10 of them, who had all been athletes previously. And that isn't always true in girls' high school tennis. Sometimes you have a lot of kids who have not even approached sports before, and which is a whole different thrill and a whole different challenge. But last year I had a lot of girls who had, who were half milers on the track. They were cross country runners. They were soccer players and so on. So I lost some of those, but I retained some as well and got some new freshmen and sophomores. So I think it's going to be a wonderful season. I'm always more concerned with my team than whoever is across the net. So I'm optimistic, and I'm just thrilled to be back.
Well, I think we all share a lot of your optimism, Coach, considering that the spring season should look a little bit more similar to what we had previously. Of course, you add the masks, and there are a few mandates that are different than in usual years. But I think we're all pretty confident that we could get a full tennis season, a full spring season like we did with the fall and winter. And I like I said, we all share your optimism. I'm confident and excited to see some tennis being played. I know you're excited to get back out on the court. Coach, in your 30 years of teaching and coaching collectively, do you feel that this season could be one of the more open years in the division where it could go to really anybody?
Probably so. Well, maybe not anybody, but I think there's maybe a widening at maybe not at the top, but toward the middle. And we, Notre Dame, and country clubs were not closed. So, those kids have been playing. And some of the stronger, schools like Xavier and so on, and Cactus Shadows, we can always count on them to have a lot of girls who, couldn't maybe left their rackets for 6 months, but they'd pick them up again and be right at home. Whereas my girls are just starting tennis, a lot of them.
Okay.
Not true for my upper division kids, but for my newer kids. So I think there's probably a little sneak in room, and I think we have a powerful coaching regimen and a way of thinking about it. So I'd sure like to go to the state tournament.
And I'll tell you what, Coach, we'd love to see in the state tournament. Obviously, being a representative here in Northern Arizona, we'd love to see some Mingus Marauders make it in the singles or doubles in the state tourney. I know you feel the exact same. Speaking about some of those returners, you have only 2 seniors on the roster this season, a lot of underclassmen, mostly juniors, a lot of sophomores and freshmen. You talked about it, 5 new freshmen this year. You bring back 2 seniors, Angel Franco and Destiny Swap. What has their leadership meant to the program in years past and now going into this year, where they're kind of the representative of the varsity program?
Well, they're 2 very different girls, and they each bring their own strength to that. I also have another permanent captain, and she's a junior, Anya Kien. So, and Angel is my other permanent captain. So, Angel is more confident, as we see her gain scholarships and write her admissions letters to universities and see her branch out a bit more. She's just a self-initiating but calm, enthusiastic presence on the team, and I can count on her to direct warm-ups and delegate tasks and things like that. And then Destiny has really come on. She started as a freshman, and she knows I say this about her, that she didn't make contact with the racket and the ball more than maybe 20% of the time when she first started. She had no sports experience, but talk about a kid who really was there at every practice, every opportunity, yes, I'll be there. Catch me between these hours and these hours. And Destiny was there. And very, very reliable person, and a great example of how to take advantage of your opportunities. Yeah. So she has become more of a leader. She can quietly coach a newbie on how to score, how a tiebreaker goes, give them tips. And then we have Anya, the other permanent captain, who really is starting to come into her own as well about directing people and having the confidence to do that. Very sharp girls.
And that's got to be good for you. You mentioned that your roster does carry a lot more of the inexperienced tennis players. Not to say that there aren't a lot of experienced players on your team, but majority, there are girls who are just picking up a racket for the first time, or, well, we played a little bit in PE and now I want to go check it out for the real thing. So it's probably really good for you, especially graduating only 2 seniors. You're kind of looking for that leadership next season, and you've got it with your junior captain, as you mentioned. So you got to be feeling pretty good having that sort of leadership spread amongst your team. And you even said, Anya, I think you said was somebody who struggled early on and then was able to pick up a little bit more. And now she's essentially a coach on the court for you. Actually, it was Destiny who was like that. But, it's got to be good for you to have that backup leadership.
It is. And I think you can't just expect girls, drop them into the role of captain and say, lead this team, good luck. So we also have rotating captains. So the rotating captains, one for each match, a different girl every time, is responsible for greeting the other coach, shaking hands, directing the other coach to the locker rooms. Probably we won't do that this year because of COVID. Making sure that they know we have a trainer, that there's where the injury ice is, and, all those social skills. So every one of our varsity players eventually will take a turn as captain.
Very nice. A good rotating door just to get those kids those experience. And again, we are speaking with Mingus Union High School girls tennis coach Andrea Meyer. Coach Meyer, the boys program gets a new coach, a relatively familiar face, but a gentleman who hasn't been on the Mingus campus in a while. Coach Jake Worseldine, excuse me. He is a former Marauder, graduated from the school in 1995. Coach, throughout the season, what is your collaboration with Coach Worseldine? Are you guys practicing together? Are you just communicating throughout the season, just in general? Where is that collaboration with the boys program?
he would say that I tell him what to do, and that's a good thing. He's wonderful. I tell people he's a diamond that dropped into our laps, really. He was the director of youth programs at the Barnes Tennis Center in San Diego. So he has lots of experience. He's also a United States Professional Tennis Association pro, as I am, but he's got elite status. So he's better than your entry-level pro for certain. I worked with him over the summer and through the fall and the winter on USTA, US Tennis Association events with youth. He's just a bubbling fountain of ideas for working with 5-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds. He's endlessly resourceful. He's funny. Mm-hmm. He's clever. And he asks for help when he needs it. And he knows what he's doing when he's trying to iron out a backhand. So our plans are to every Friday, if we can, or once a week, do some kind of mixed doubles event or contest like Touch the Fence with the boys, because it helps both genders. Yeah. The girls want to beat the boys, and the boys want to match themselves against the girls too. So
when I was a sophomore in high school, I played on the boys JV team, and we would scrimmage the girls basketball JV team all the time. And they were always very fun and very competitive, and kind of kept us staying on the right track. We practiced a little bit of our offense on them, and it was a lot of fun. We became a little bit closer with the girls program because of that, because we would play these scrimmages, and it just kept things calm and loose. And we just got an opportunity to sort of bond a little bit over our struggles and their struggles. So it's great to see that both programs are finding sort of that togetherness and practicing with each other. Like you said, playing just a scrimmage or touch the net, just something that kind of gets everybody. We're on the same team. We're different programs, but we are essentially both Marauders. So Coach Worseldine is a former Marauder. I know you didn't get a chance to coach him, but I will ask, how does it feel to see an alum come back to the high school? It's kind of a running theme with Mingus Union High School, where you do get a lot of former. I've noticed that in Northern Arizona in general, more specifically here at Mingus, as well as Flagstaff High School, where you get a lot of returning players coming back to the program. I mean, just in general, how does it feel to you to see a player come back and coach the program they played for?
It seems like a natural thing. We have a science teacher, we have social studies teachers, we have English teachers who've all gone to Mingus, and I can't even count how many have been alums of Mingus in the classroom and come back, because people feel a loyalty to their school, and they know what a hometown school can do for them that's different from a metropolitan school. So Jake knows what it's like to wear those red and gray colors and have that pride, and he's got a history there, and so it feels like home to him too, I think.
I think so too. Go ahead.
Yeah. And the mixed doubles, when girls and guys play together, it's I was going to mention that it's also a really useful, valuable thing for boys and girls to play together as a doubles teams, mixed doubles, because there's a social negotiation there. Sometimes the guy wants to take over the net and control more, 3/4 of the court instead of his half. And sometimes the girls, accede to that, and sometimes they don't. So working out those male, female, traditional roles on the court is a challenge too. And it's good for both of the genders.
Of course, breaking gender stereotypes. You got to love it with both those two programs going at it. It's definitely competitive, and I know you like it. We all like to see it. Again, we were speaking with Mingus Union High School girls tennis coach Andrea Meyer. Coach Meyer, we've got just a couple minutes here. I do want to ask. You talk about being a youth coach yourself. Obviously, Coach Worseldine also has a very prominent foundation in youth sports with tennis and coaching tennis. You talked about it. You have some of those inexperienced players on your roster. So I want to ask, in terms of tennis here in the Verde Valley, or even in Cottonwood in general, maybe even Yavapai County, do you feel that there needs to be more of an emphasis on the youth sports at the tennis level here, or would you like to see more of an emphasis at at the lower level. So when these girls or even these boys come into these programs, they've already got some kind of experience having been a part of a youth program here in the Verde Valley. And I will say, if there are any and you'd like to mention them, you can.
Sure. I'm of the mind that there can never be too much tennis. My answer when somebody asks me, do you want to play? It's always yes. So Jake and I have been in the schools. So I've taught in the PE programs at Verde Valley Christian Academy or in the after school program there, and in the PE program with Rudy Sandoval's PE classes, grades kindergarten through 8th at Clarkdale Jerome. And we also have some PE teachers who've been trained by the USTA in red ball tennis, orange ball tennis, the lower compression balls. Yes. Randy Kepi at Dr. Daniel Bright, and then we have I think Danae Smith at Cornville School, Oak Creek School. So of course we'd like to see more, but the Northern Arizona USTA has done a good job of putting us in the schools, and we look forward to more of that. It really is the key to upper level success. Yeah.
Coach, before we let you go, I do want to ask, your first matchup against Cactus was canceled last week. You get an opportunity to take on Coconino next week. How are you feeling about that matchup with the Panthers?
Coconino has 4 courts and adjacent to their school. So our matches might be truncated a little bit. We might play no ad scoring or something like that. And weather is always an iffy thing up there. But Coconino has been strong lately, and they have a lot of school pride. And so going against Coconino is not what it was, 8 years ago or 10 years ago. They're a fierce team, and we can count on them to have some training. So I think they're going to be a tough opponent. Some of the other schools that we're playing that I've been in touch with have indicated, their coaches have indicated that they're down in their numbers. But I think we're one of the few schools, girls sports, in the spring. Well, actually, any girls sport, we're one of the few sports that is actually up in numbers and actually filling our rosters. So our Williams Field match, for example, they'll have only 8 players, so to our 13. So well, try to give opportunities to all those girls.
Yes, and that does kind of present that possibility of allowing a few players to get a little extra time due to the lower amount of numbers. And it's nice to hear that Mingus is going to have a full tennis team. Exciting matchup coming up next week against Coconino. Coach Meyer, again, this is Andrea Meyer, the head coach of the girls tennis program over at Mingus Union High School. Coach Meyer, thank you very much for coming on the show. It was great getting a chance to speak with you. I look forward to talking to you a little bit down the line and during the season. And best of luck against the Panthers, and best of luck here in the 2021 tennis season.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it. Thanks.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Flagstaff baseball coach Michael Dubosh on the other side of this break. Off the Bench will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in Northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I am joined now by Flagstaff High School baseball coach Michael Dubosh. Coach Dubosh, welcome back onto the show. Or welcome to the show, I should say.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
Well, we're happy to have you. Coming into 2020, in 2019, the Eagles were 9-9. They got an opportunity to play in the playoffs. Obviously, 2020 was a lost season. Here in 2021, you're bringing back a strong senior class. I counted about 8 on your roster coming into this season. Some big names coming back, focus around your pitching rotation. I know these guys play multiple positions, but Justin Hansen, Daniel Woods, and Silas Clary were 3 guys that I saw who were coming back this year onto your rotation. So, Coach, just kind of going into this season in general, how does it feel to get a big senior class back? How does it feel to get those 3 starters back? And how is the team looking going into this upcoming spring season?
Yeah, it's definitely a benefit to have a huge senior class, especially after what happened last year. To have a little bit of maturity coming back. After losing the season to the pandemic and shutting down the sports here in Arizona. So it's big for us. The leadership is great. It's great to have those seniors out there playing for you. On the mound, Justin Hansen is going to be our 1A, and Silas is going to be our 1B. So, Justin is a big kid, 6'4", 6'5", 215-pound left-handed, pitcher that throws really hard. So we're excited to see what he can do. It was unfortunate. I would have loved to see him throw a complete season last year. I think that, I think the sky was the limit, and it's unfortunate that we didn't get a chance to do that. But this year, hopefully we'll get to see that and watch him go throughout the season. And then Silas, can't say enough about Silas. He's just a true leader on the field, whether he's on the mound or playing short or hitting in the 3 spot for us. He makes things happen for us. We are who we are because of Silas. So,
Coach, you mentioned having a 1A and 1B pitcher. Obviously, compared to, let's say, college or the MLB, a lot of these kids are playing multiple positions. You have a first baseman who can pitch. You have a shortstop who can also play left field. So regarding your rotation, what is your approach to your pitching rotation? It seems to be, you kind of alluded to it, obviously, there's sort of your ace and then your go-to guy, and you can kind of mix guys in here and there. But, let's just break it down. Are you going to stick with that 1-2? Has it always been kind of that way for you in terms of your rotation? I know it's a little different for high school. You're not playing every day like you would in the MLB or playing it to the extent you would in college. But what is your personal approach to your pitching staff?
Yeah, it's usually you usually have 2 main starters, and depending on the season, obviously changes, particularly for Northern Arizona schools when we get games canceled and rescheduled. But typically it's 2 games a week. And so if you can have 2 really good starters that can go deep into the games, you can have a successful season. And I think that's what we do have. We will need a 3rd starter occasionally. We do have 3 games occasionally. I think next week we have 3 games. So we will see a 3rd starter. Right now it looks like Teague Van Dyke will be our number 3 starter for us. And we're looking for big things from him. He's a junior this year. So, but yeah, I mean, we love to send Justin and Silas out there. It's a little strategic. You have to, we want Silas to play shortstop. So we have to plan that, because obviously playing short after, you throw the game before is very difficult to do. So we've got to be mindful of that. And we try and make sure we plan each week accordingly, but we definitely want those 2 guys throwing. So.
You talk about Silas obviously playing shortstop and also being a pitcher for you. Are you finding that you're going to have to, you just talked about it, you're kind of looking for that 3rd starter, or maybe even just some long relievers or guys who can pitch on days where maybe you want to have Silas out in the field and you don't want him to throw. Are you having to convert more position players into starters? Are you specifically looking at guys who have had pitching experience when you go to pick your team? How is your preparation there and just building that rotation out as a whole?
It's kind of a program philosophy for us. We talk to the freshmen as they come in, and we just stress the importance of pitching. You're not going to be a successful baseball team without great pitching. It just isn't going to happen. You can't hit your way out of games usually if if the pitching staff's not doing their job. So we really stress that early on. We want those, athletes, even if they haven't pitched before, to try and get on the mound and see if they can develop into pitchers. And then, when they become varsity, when they're juniors, when they're seniors, typically we have some guys that can fill those roles late in the game. We're super excited about Sam Schmitz. He's a kid that'll throw some innings for us. Maybe not a starter, but definitely, late in the game when it's, when the game's on the line, coming in after Justin or Silas. Bodie Myers, another one that we're really excited about. Justin Cordasco, a left-handed pitcher. He's a junior. We're definitely looking for those kids to fill some innings late in the games, and possibly a spot start when Silas needs a break. And he needs to take a start off and play shortstop. We're definitely looking for those guys to come up big for us.
In terms of preparing these kids for college, obviously in the NCAA, there is sort of that set rotation where somebody like Silas, maybe he doesn't find a spot at shortstop for a Division I team, but he could maybe find a role as a pitcher. So preparing guys who are kind of in those dual spots for the next step, do you kind of take that into consideration going, okay, maybe I give Silas a couple more starts at the end of the season, or maybe at the beginning of the season, I want to see how this guy can progress in his starting pitching. I know he's getting looked at by scouts or by a recruiter more specifically. Where does your preparation for these guys going to the next level with your rotation?
Yeah, and that gets tough because, in order to make the playoffs in the state, you have to win your conference, your region, or, you have to win, 14 out of 18 games. And so, like we talked to the kids, we got to win day one. We're going to Mojave tomorrow to play a doubleheader, and we're expecting to win both those games to get on a great start. And we know Mojave's gonna be tough for us, but those are our expectations. Our expectations are to make the playoffs and make a run into state and try and win a state championship. And so it's hard to kind of play it by ear, so to speak, or to see what a kid has when you have to win every game, particularly this year because we don't have our tournaments. Those tournaments, we normally would go to the Brophy tournament and also to the Tucson tournament, South Point tournament. And that would give us an opportunity to maybe have some kids pitch or play a certain position that they don't normally do. And this year we don't have that. So we've got to start tomorrow, day one, with our best arms on the mound, and we got to try and win every game we possibly can.
Again, we are joined by Flagstaff High School baseball coach Michael Dubosh. Coach, you've been around baseball for a long time. You've been coaching for about 22 seasons now. I believe it was one with Barry Goldwater and two with Winslow. You've basically been with Flagstaff most of your coaching career ever since you graduated from NAU. You moved back up to the Flagstaff area, and you've been the baseball coach for Flagstaff ever since. You took a small pause in 2007 and 8, but you're back in 2009. You've been there ever since, and you've seen a lot of kids go through this program, many of which who have found success not only at the NCAA level, but also at the MLB level. More specifically, Brandon Macias is a guy that you got a chance to coach while you during your tenure in Flagstaff. Landon Tinsman, Drew Healy more recently. Of course, your son, Ryan Dubosh, is on, I believe he plays for Arizona Christian right now. So you've got kids who are either in the MLB or in the NCAA, and there seems to be a consensus, not only with you guys, but your crosstown rival Coconino High School, that Flagstaff is kind of a baseball school. You guys have produced a lot of good talent to take that next step from the NCAA to the MLB. So I want to ask you, in terms of that talent pool, Coach, where are you guys finding these players? Obviously, you're not recruiting because you can't, but is it a strong youth program? Is it development at the JV level? Is it just kids? You just luck of the draw. You happen to get a couple kids who can throw well and hit well. Where would you contribute that success translating from high school to the NCAA and possibly into the MLB?
I think it's all of those things. I think the Little League programs, the youth programs here, we've had some great coaches that have built the kids up. And so when they get to high school, they're definitely ready to play high school. The club scene, we have a lot of kids that go to Phoenix and play on club. And I'm a big promoter of that. I think those athletes, and I love multi-sport athletes. I was a multi-sport athlete in high school, but those kids that do decide to play in the off season, I'm a big promoter of go to Phoenix, get on a team, learn from another coach, meet new players, play in big tournaments. Some of the things that we might not be able to with our clubs here in Northern Arizona. I'm a big promoter of that. And I think, you have to have the right kid. You got to have a kid that is ultra competitive, internally competitive, internally driven. And the kids that you mentioned right there are that. They're hard workers. They grew up playing baseball. They played in elite clubs, club tournaments, and they are, ultimately driven to be successful.
Coach, the pandemic has been tough for everybody. We're finally getting back into the swing of things here in this spring season. Obviously, last spring was completely lost for a lot of seniors. But here, things are looking good. We're looking like we could get a full spring season with a few modifications in place. In our pre-interview, Coach, you made a great point talking about what athletics mean to young players, and I'd like to just have you expand a little bit more on that since we're now returning back to athletics after a very confusing and long fall and winter seasons. We're here in the spring and we're ready to go. So I just want to ask, what do athletics mean for young people?
Yeah, and I think in general, athletics, they do a lot for our youth. They help build those life skills that they're going to take on into their careers, into their jobs, into their families. To try hard, to do your best. To get back up when you get knocked down. Right. The things that we learned when we were playing sports. It's okay to be unsuccessful. Learn from it. Move on. And I think sometimes we're missing that maybe in the youth today, in the generation today. Obviously, with the pandemic and shutting things down, it gets us back to a little bit feeling normal. Even though I'm in a mass coaching, I love being out there on the field, and I feel slightly normal again, being around kids and being able to coach again, and obviously excited about playing tomorrow. We haven't played a game in a year. Probably over a year now if I went back and actually looked at the date. But, it's just back to hopefully normal. And hopefully we continue down that path and things, get even more back to what we remember. So, but yeah, sports have been a big part of my life growing up. They taught me a lot. I was a shy kid growing up, and, luckily I was pretty athletic and had some success, and that helped build some confidence. And I think it's very important for our kids to experience that.
Well, Coach, you just mentioned it, not only with the kids, but yourself as a coach, getting an opportunity to go back out on the field. I mean, I feel like that's something that's a little lost. Obviously, high school sports are more about the kids. The focus is there on the kids. But, with the coaches as well, I can't imagine the position you were in last year, having to tell your team, hey, guys, your senior year's done. That's it. We cannot play anymore. And you yourself, even throughout this entire last year, even going into the spring season, maybe there were some question marks of, are we going to get this spring season again? That takes a toll on the coaches as well. That lost year is very, very tough for everybody, not only just the players.
Yeah, for sure. And I felt so bad for those seniors last year in particular. When we met and at the end and we knew things were shut down and we were collecting gear and doing the things we needed to do to kind of wrap things up, seeing their faces, seeing their parents, seeing the tears. Not only in the parents, but the kids' eyes. So yeah, that was definitely tough. I felt truly bad for them. And you just want the best for those kids. You want them to be able to come back and finish that senior year. And I wish they could have done that. And obviously this year, yeah, we weren't sure, football went pretty well. And then winter sports we were like, oh man, I'm not sure if we're going to have a winter sports. And so what's going to happen with spring? So we're definitely, we're in a good place now. We're very happy to be out there. We're very excited to get going and to get playing and get back to normal. So
I couldn't agree more, Coach. And after the small stint against Mojave, you guys take on Lake Havasu. How you feeling in that matchup against Lake Havasu now that the season's officially underway? What are your expectations, not only in that game, but going forward on the season?
Yeah, and we haven't played Lake Havasu in a while. Matter of fact, I can't in recent memory remember a time when we played them. So it's a great matchup for us. I've been to their field. It's been a while now. It's been probably over 20 years. I've been to their field, and I'm excited about going there. I know they have a really great program. I know it's going to be a tough game for us. We have 3 games next week, so we'll see. Like I was talking about earlier, we'll see how the pitching rotation kind of works out next week. Probably going to be, Silas on the mound is what I think is going to probably happen there. But again, we're excited. We like to play a tough schedule. That's why we go to the Brophy tournament most years, and we go down to Tucson because we want to play those great teams in the state of Arizona, and that's going to make us better and make us more prepared for a state playoff run. So,
Coach, it should be an absolutely exciting season in the 4A Grand Canyon region as we officially get the spring season kicked off. We are going full force now, a little slow down with the weather last week, but we're here ready to go. And we're excited for what the Eagles will have to offer in a very competitive 4A Grand Canyon region this season, Coach. So thank you very much for coming on the show again. This is Flagstaff High School baseball coach Michael Dubosh. Coach, best of luck on the season, and we look forward to catching up a little later in the year.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more sports for you right here on Off the Bench. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, presented by Rice Accounting and Jackson Hewitt Tax Services and Cottonwood Parks and Recreation, right here on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 FM. I am joined now by Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Coach Brown, welcome onto the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you, Coach. As we all know, 2020 was a lost season. Here in 2021, you get an opportunity to basically pick up where you left off in 2019. But the team's looking pretty good. Got their first victory this week against Lee Williams. How'd you like your team in that game?
I thought they performed well, as to be expected. Lee Williams is a up-and-coming team, so we knew that we'd have a little bit of competition there, but we expected to do well, so we did.
Very much so. The team was led by their pitcher, junior pitcher, Alexis Airsman. Alexis has been with you since her freshman year. I know you got an opportunity to coach her in the club scene as well when she was a little younger before she came on to Mingus Union High School. But as a freshman, she's kind of been the go-to ace for you. When you get a player like that who can step off the field as a non-varsity player but come on to your program as sort of a first-year varsity starter as a freshman, what is your approach to coaching that player? Obviously, being in the club circuit, they've kind of gotten a little bit of a taste of that higher competition, that tougher competition. Alexis being a good example of that, somebody who's played on the club scene, then made her way to your program at Mingus when she was a freshman. So when you get a player like that, Coach, who can make that transition seamlessly or a little bit easier of that transition as opposed to somebody who's just picking up the sport for the first time, where is your approach with coaching them?
Really, it's more about managing, I guess, the pressure of high school sports versus what she's used to in her club sport. I mean, as far as being a competitor and knowing the game of softball and how to pitch and all that basics, I mean, she was pretty much there, just in a younger version. But to throw her onto the mound as a freshman, that's a whole different dynamic for them. It seems, they do it all the time, but then you do it in high school and all of a sudden it's like they act like it's the World Series. So you gotta kind of tone them down a little bit. And it's a longer game in high school. So club is time limited. And in high school, you're going to play all 7 innings unless you run rule a team. And so sometimes for pitchers, it's a matter of, I don't know, I guess kind of making sure they manage their energy and making sure that they manage the game well so they can make it the whole game.
Well, it seems like maybe even your focus doesn't have to be on teaching a lot of those fundamentals as you would with somebody who's new to the sport, where you've got somebody with that experience. It's got to be a little bit easier to go, okay, we don't need to teach you how to catch. We don't need to teach you how to throw, where to go if you're a third baseman and there's a double play. I would assume, Coach, and you can talk a little bit more about that, especially with Alexis, it's more kind of fine tuning some of the things that she does to make sure that they work to a more efficient level.
Absolutely. I think that, when they come into the program, and Alexis is one, but there's a group of about, 6 or 7 girls that play on that club program. And when they show up, like you said, they know the fundamentals, they know the basics, they can continue to improve, but it's more strategy. It's more, what do we do when we play against this team, and how do we approach that batter? And they get to learn the advanced parts of the game a lot faster, whereas as freshmen, normally they come in and they got to learn the basics. And until they're a junior or senior, they don't really get involved in the strategy of the game. So it's really fun to have this many years with this group and working on that strategy. It really gives us an advantage.
Ella Balo, one of your returners from last year and also 2019, somebody who, when you and I spoke before the game against Lee Williams, you had some high praise for Ella in that game. Against Lee Williams this week, she was 2 for 3 with 3 RBIs. She is your leadoff hitter. Coach, I want to ask, what are you looking for specifically when you go, okay, we need a new leadoff person. Here's the girl that I think could do it. What are you looking for? And what set Ella aside from everybody else when you made that first decision to make her the leadoff hitter?
Well, Ella is she's a leader anyway. I mean, she's our team captain as a junior. She's a good all-around team player. The kids love her, and they follow her, and they do what she leads, and they follow. And so at the end of the day, it's a perfect setup for her to be our leadoff hitter. She's a lefty slapper, which is very common for the leadoff spot. She can lay down bunts, she can hit for power, she can do it all, and she's got wheels, so she can run. It's just a good way to start the tempo of a game when you have a kid like that that's going to have a high on-base percentage. And on top of that, she's the team leader. So if she gets on, it seems like everybody gets a good taste in their mouth, and away we go.
And that's kind of what you want in your leadoff hitter, correct? You want somebody to get things started for you offensively.
Absolutely. They need to be able to, see what the pitcher's doing, kind of get an idea what the umpire is going to call, and then be able to get on base when they're deep in a count, and we need them to. So Ella fits that mold real well.
You do return 5 seniors this year. One of them is a new face, Yasmin Mestis, who we saw during the girls basketball season at Mingus Union. Yasmin makes her jump over to the varsity field this year. One of 5 seniors that you're graduating on the team. What have you liked from your seniors these past 3 years, and how does Yasmin fit into the equation now being a new face of the program?
Well, as far as the overall senior group goes, I feel like this group lost a lot of their junior year last year, and unfortunately our seniors last year lost their whole senior season. So for my seniors this year, it's more about just making sure that they understand that every game could be their last. And the poor girls last year got a taste of that prematurely, and it's upsetting for them. And it was eye-opening for me and for these juniors that became seniors. So it's about playing everything they got. They missed a season. And these juniors, most of them do play a little bit of club ball, but they weren't quite as deep as the younger girls in it. Yaz doesn't play club softball. She's an athlete. As you can tell at Mingus, she plays a lot of sports, volleyball and basketball, and she's good at all of those. This is her first year playing up on varsity as a contender, a player that's going to have an impact. So we look forward to her getting her shot. I mean, she deserves it. She's been working hard for years, and I know she was a little worried that she might not get that shot, so she's not going to take it lightly. She's going to go for it.
And she did make most of, or as much as she could have, for that one opportunity she's gotten so far this season. She did get a hit in her only at bat in that game against Lee Williams. So it seems like, Coach, you've got another option offensively and defensively for your roster this season. Again, we are speaking with Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown. Coach Brown, you mentioned it, a few returners. We talked about it in the beginning of the interview. Club players. Softball, one of those sports that is year-round. You can play club ball. You can play tournaments everywhere. My sister did it when she was playing softball. It gives you a lot of exposure. So I want to ask you, Coach, for the roster this season, and even in seasons in the past, have you found that you're finding a lot more players being sort of that dual club/high school players, or are you getting a lot of players who say, well, my mom played softball, so now I want to play softball, or my dad's in a beer softball league, and that looks like fun, so we'll maybe do that potentially, but where in terms of the experience are you getting your players? Where are they at with their skill set?
Well, I think club softball. I can't speak for other club sports so much, but club softball has been a big part of my life. That's where I started. And to come into the high school scene, it was kind of an eye opener for me because a lot of the girls didn't play year round. So it was kind of a mix when you show up at practice. You have some girls that really need to learn the fundamentals, and you got other girls that are way advanced that have been playing clubs. So for me to have a group of girls that have played year round is a huge advantage. And I think it's an advantage for any high school sport. I know there's a lot of opposition to it. They think maybe they shouldn't concentrate on one sport year round. And I don't think a lot of these girls necessarily just concentrate on one sport, but they make that their primary sport. And I think if you're going to have a chance to play at the next level or even at the highest level you can in high school ball, you really have to make that sort of a commitment and play that much because everybody else is. So you're going to get left behind. The game will pass you up. And so for me, it's a huge benefit. I'm firmly behind it. I think it's a great thing for these girls, and I think it shows. Our high school has been very competitive for the last 10 years since I've been at this high school anyway, and every one of those groups has had an overwhelming side of club players on the roster. And so you'll see other sports in our school that are starting to falter a little bit, and they don't have an underlying club program or a summer program. And I believe that is the evidence that everybody's looking for.
Coach, we talked about it a little bit when you're kind of picking your roster. We've been talking about experience, and I do want to ask, of course, there are always, whenever you're picking your roster, you want to get players who have played before. You're already kind of factoring in, and we've got about 7 or 8 girls coming back guaranteed. Now we just need to fill out the rest of that roster. I know that there are some instances where a new player will show a lot of potential, and you'll put them on the varsity roster. You continue to build them, even if they don't have too much experience, but they have a lot of potential. So I want to ask, when you're building your roster, outside of the returners you get, when you're looking to fill out the rest of that roster, how important is that experience to you? Or are you kind of looking at the, fall practices, the winter practices going, okay, she hasn't played too much softball, but she's got a lot of potential and we do need somebody out in left field. Maybe we give her a shot on this varsity team. Are you looking more specifically for players with experience, or do you like to approach those players who don't have as much experience?
It's a combination. I mean, for your primary roles on the field, up the middle, catcher, pitcher, shortstop, and center field, you're looking for experience because they're going to lead the girls around them. So those girls in those positions, you're looking for somebody who has been there or can play that role without a whole lot of new learning, I guess you'd say. But as far as filling out the rest of the roster, I'm looking for athleticism and I'm looking for coachability because there's a lot of girls out there who have played the game a lot, but they're not very coachable. And so they can become a problem in a lot of different ways. But I just look for athletes because there's a lot of roles on the team other than field positions. There's runners, there's flex hitters. There's a lot of things that you can do with an athlete in this game that doesn't necessarily have to have a whole lot of softball experience. If they can run fast and slide, they probably find a way to get in the game. So that's what I look for.
Yeah, I like that very much. That's something I didn't even factor in are those specialty players you see a lot in baseball and softball. I guess more for softball because you've got the slap hitting aspect of it. But like you just said, pinch runners, flex hitters. If you need a bunt laid down, you have somebody on the roster who can lay down a bunt. You need somebody to steal second. Kiki Sarava was that for you during the Lee Williams game. You put her in as a pinch runner. She was able to, I believe, come around and score, or she got stuck at second, one of the two. But regardless, you've got that experience. You've got that specialty player who can fill that role for you. And I think that's what sets softball and baseball apart from some of the other sports like football or basketball, where basketball, it's very much, look, if you can't dribble a basketball, you're going to have a real hard time playing basketball, regardless of how tall or how athletic you are. But are there any positions, Coach, that you find are more difficult to fill? Obviously, girls play multiple different positions. Some play the infield, outfield, some pitch, some play third, whatever. Are there any positions that you find are a little more difficult to fill out throughout the season?
Historically, a pitcher is the most difficult position to fill. They have to be very talented and a very specific athletic capability. And so if you don't have a pitcher, you don't have a team. That's all there is to it. So we're very much blessed that we have depth in pitching and depth in quality pitching. So that's been really great for me to not have to freak out about, who's going to pitch or who can handle it. But I would have to say that all those same positions up the middle, again, the catcher, pitcher, short, and center field, not so much because of their athletic ability or even their experience, but they have to be a leader. They have to be able to direct on the field and tell girls where to go and what the next play is and these kinds of things. And the thing I struggle with is finding somebody who's got a voice, somebody who's willing to step out there and say, hey, this is what we're going to do next on every single pitch, because a lot of them just don't quite have the confidence to put themselves out there like that.
Right. And that very much is, you mentioned center field. That's the captain of the outfield. The infield, it's the catcher. You do need those leadership players to step in. And like you said, not be afraid to be so vocal out on the field and call out plays, move people if they need to, just to have that voice, as you mentioned, to help sort of round out the roster and give this team a little bit more leadership. Coach, club softball, travel softball, we talked about it a little bit. You're a former club coach. I want to ask you, where does the role of club sports play in softball right now? Some coaches like it, some coaches don't. Where do you stand on it?
I think it's integral. It's vital if you want to have a competitive program. I think if you reach out and you talk to any softball coach in the high school circuit that's in 3A or higher, bigger schools, if they're competitive, they've got a club program behind them. And if they're not competitive, they probably think club sports are not a good thing, and that shows. And I get it at some angle, but if you want to be competitive and you want to teach these girls what it's like to be competitive and to win at a competitive level, they have to have some club experience. And if you're going to, cast that to the side, you're missing out on something very vital to the game. I think any coach that says that they're not, behind club sports and they are competitive, they probably don't realize it behind the scenes that their kids are playing club sports and they just don't know it.
Yeah, very much so. The JV team coach also was able to play quite well against Lee Williams. And surprisingly enough, a rarity in softball who is on your JV team, a lefty starting pitcher in softball. You got a southpaw on the JV team. That's got to be exciting going forward. How have you liked the JV teams in their first game? What is your collaboration with the JV program throughout the season?
Well, this year it's kind of difficult. We've normally always had enough kids to really fill 2 rosters, and we practice together every day so that we have kids that can plug and play if we have a kid go down for injury or a grade issue or something like that. But this year we struggled, as most of the teams at the high school did, without having in class. The younger kids weren't making it to the school, so they didn't have younger programs like JV. And softball's feeling the ripple effect of that. We didn't have a large group of girls come out. So the girls that came out for JV are very green. They're learning every day because they're practicing with varsity. But they've got, they got to learn the game itself. And so I was happy with the way they played, and we were able to see a lot of the stuff that they can work on. We've got a couple girls that are going to play both JV and varsity pretty much all season if they can. And so that's going to help them with some experience, and it's going to give them a chance. But the lefty pitcher, that's first for me. I've been coaching for over 20 years, and I've never had a lefty on the mound. So I'm kind of excited to see how she develops.
Yeah, that was one of the things that before the game, I was speaking with some of the crew, and we were watching the JV game, just getting ready to get set up. And I saw the lefty pitcher on the mound, and I said, whoa, that's a little different. We don't usually see left-handed softball pitchers, but what an advantage to have, Coach. You guys' next game is against Mojave. Obviously, you got a nice victory to start off the season against Lee Williams. How do you feel against Mojave? What are you expecting from the Thunderbirds next week?
Well, normally Mojave is a good competitor in our region, and I was very close with the coach from Mojave. We're very competitive against each other on the fields, but she retired last year, and I don't really know what to expect from them. I just can see what they've done. They played Flagstaff, and they kind of got handled a little bit, and so it leads me to believe that they might have a young program, and I don't have a coach to reach out to find out what's going on with them. So it's just going to be, let's see what happens when we show up on the field. And I never discount Mojave. We split with them almost every year. And this year we need to win both of those games. So we're going to go in there guns a-blazing.
Should be an absolutely exciting matchup as the Mingus Marauders take on the Mojave Thunderbirds next week. I do want to thank Mingus Union High School softball coach John Brown for coming on the program, along with Mingus Union High School girls tennis coach Andrea Meyer and Flagstaff baseball coach Michael Dubosh. All my guests. Coach, thank you very much for coming on the program. Best of luck going forward in the season.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
We will continue our coverage of the winter season going into the spring season on the next episode of Off the Bench. For all my guests, I'm Philip Katafamo, wishing you a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.